First order of business is for me to introduce our newest commissioner. Mr. Andrew Davis is the new 3D October. He was the commissioner from the SMD 3D October who collected his signatures, was certified by the Board of Elections, and was sworn in by Matt Freeman last week. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So welcome.
Thank you.
So if you live in the 3D October, Andrew Davis is your new ANC commissioner, and his email is 3d04@anc.dc.gov. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
We're very excited. We're very excited. First order is for us to approve the agenda. Motion on the floor is to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
There's a second, and then I have an amendment.
Please go ahead with your amendment.
I move to add the Trammell Crow Balfour issue in order to have us vote to approve the opposition to the Department of Transportation's proposal that I wrote and emailed to everyone.
I take that as a friendly amendment. Are there any other amendments? Commissioner Simkowitz, you and I had talked about the resolution to release the funds of the trolley trestle bridge was not quite ready. I think you're muted, Commissioner Simkowitz.
Thank you for asking, Commissioner Duncan. We haven't received the final version of what ANC2E apparently passed the other night, so I can read what their draft was, but I don't have a final version for us to sign. I suggest that maybe I read what they wrote, and then we can either make a choice to approve it tonight or defer to either the special meeting or in November.
Can I ask you, because I want this to pass, obviously, personally, is there going to be any issue with us waiting?
I don't think so. Let me just read it. It's very short. On October 1st, $250,000 in funding was unlocked for planning a future restoration and possible purchase of the trolley trestle across the southern end of Glover Archibald Park. That's where my district is. The trestle presents a unique opportunity of preservation and restoration of a historic structure. We note that DDOT will be assuming liability for the structure, but we believe it is prudent that DDOT will be the decision maker rather than WMATA, who currently owns it. As the only trestle remaining in the district, we support the efforts of the DC Preservation League to encourage DDOT to actually purchase the historic trestle from WMATA, which is actively seeking to raise this trestle. And therefore, we ask that DDOT appoint a project manager and create a plan to spend the $250,000, and DDOT create a status report for us to look at by November 17th. And I don't know what the importance of the November 17th date is, but that's apparently what they passed.
Commissioner Elkins?
I think Commissioner Elkins had his hand up.
No. Okay. That was just a glitch. All right. I'm going to move to keep that on the agenda.
Yes, maybe it's possible for us to approve that and empower you to use it.
Make minor adjustments as needed.
That's what I would suggest, Commissioner Duncan. So that's up to you.
Okay, so the agenda, the motion to approve the agenda is as amended for the Trammell Crow, and that's the only amendment. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Quentin, are you voting? Thank you. All right, passes unanimously. Okay, on to business. If Officer McElwee is with us, we would love to hear your traffic and crime report.
I am with you. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you've really upped your technology because I've never seen you more clear. So
I thank the Metropolitan Police Department for that. I got a new computer. First of all, good evening, commissioners, residents, and all the guests out there. I'm Tony McElwee. I'm currently your traffic officer as well as your community MPD liaison officer here at the 2nd District. I'm going to start off with the last 30 days of our crime report for PSA 205. That's your patrol service area in your communities out there, Spring Valley, Palisades, etc. We had one robbery, which I think should have been classified as a theft. We had 17 theft from automobiles. And we had 4 general thefts. I'm going to start off with the robbery. The robbery occurred on September 15th at 12 noon in front of the 2900 block of New Mexico Avenue. An unknown male drove up in a red Camaro, pulled up next to a construction worker, and lifted up his shirt and exposed an unknown black object inside his waistband. He then jumped out of the vehicle and proceeded to steal a construction chop saw. The vehicle was last seen fleeing north on New Mexico Avenue. We had 17 theft from automobiles last month. Out of the 17 thefts, 12 of the vehicles had their side windows broken out to gain access. The majority of thefts involved black bags left in plain view. As I say at every meeting, MPD asked that residents clear out all items from plain view, lock their car doors, and alarm their vehicles if applicable. Theft from autos are our biggest problem within your neighborhoods. Our 2nd District Crime Suppression Unit, they're a specialized unit that assist the patrol units. We're assisting us in our patrols with extra enforcement with the problem areas of concern. In fact, I'm happy to say MPD did make an arrest on September 19th of 2 adult males involved in operating a blue Honda Accord with a Maryland temp tag that was seen in your neighborhoods. Our 2nd District Crime Suppression Unit worked collectively with our partners over in the 4th District, and we conducted a track of one of the computers that was stolen. It was a laptop, and we tracked it to a Mobile X store located on 14th Street Northwest. This investigation resulted in the arrest of 2 adult males who were charged. MPD, as a result of this arrest, was able to return several of these stolen items back to their owners, and some of those owners were within PSA 205, your neighborhoods, because of this arrest. We believe that these 2 individuals were associated with several of the thefts that occurred between September 9th and September 15th. I'm going to share some of the locations of these thefts so that our residents that are here today at the meeting are aware and can report anything that they may see that is suspicious, such as vehicles and persons, to 911. Between September 8th and September 15th, all between 12 noon and 3 p.m., which we believe again were these 2 individuals who we arrested, they targeted 4900 Sedgwick, 4900 Tilden, 4800 Rockwood Parkway, 3000 block of University, 5200 block of Manning Place, 5000 block of Lawboro, 3900 block of 52nd Street, and 4500 Lowell. Other locations that were targeted, just I want to put them out there, was 4200 block of Cathedral, 3000 block of 44th, 4500 block of MacArthur, and 5100 Potomac Avenue. These were all daytime, during the week crimes. So again, you have to be our eyes and ears. If you see anything, please report it to us, to 911. We also had 5 thefts, which involved the theft of UPS packages from a porch, 1 scooter, and 3 thefts from the CVS at 4859 MacArthur Boulevard. And those thefts were of laundry soap. Finally, I would like to announce that the 2nd District will be conducting a community safety walk on October 18th, starting at 6 p.m. We're going to meet at the American University Public Safety Office located at 3501 Nebraska Avenue. We will have a meet and greet and talk about crime prevention, and then walk over towards Ward Circle, where we will talk about pedestrian safety and conduct some enforcement. Please come out and join us if you can. I will put my email address in your chat box. Also, please remember, as I say at every meeting, if you're going to go away for 2 or 3 days or more, feel free to email me. Again, I'll put my email in your chat box, and be happy to come over there and check on your home while you're gone. As far as traffic goes, I focused on MacArthur Boulevard, 4500 in the mornings and the evening hours because last month MacArthur High School opened up. So we wanted to put some high visibility and special attention out there. I also, over there in Commissioner Elkins' area, we focused on the sign violations in the morning, Monday through Friday. You're not allowed to cut down to 4500 of Macomb Street. I stopped. I was out there 3 times. I stopped 22 vehicles and issued 42 notices of infractions. With that said, I'm happy to take some questions, concerns, and some complaints if there are any.
I am going to ask the commissioners if they have anything that they want to ask Officer McElwee. And if you are in, or if you're a participant at home or here, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Commissioner Elkins.
Officer McElwee, I had the honor today to participate in a hearing at the DC Council on traffic safety. And if you ever need some inspiration when you get a little discouraged, I would urge you to listen to the first panel of 12 ANC commissioners who made it very clear that your work and the work of your fellow officers across the city in enforcing traffic safety laws is a public health and safety issue of the highest importance, and that you need all the support you need. I was able to testify using some of the information that you and I worked through about a month or 2 ago. I found that very helpful, and so did the committee. I'm hopeful that we will have new laws on the books soon that will increase the penalties for people who violate our city's laws in terms of running through red lights and speeding, etc. But I just wanted to say to you, I came away from that hearing inspired by the importance of traffic safety and the work that you do. And I just want, since you were not there, I wanted to pass that on.
Thank you, Commissioner Elkins, for your nice comments and for assisting us with improving and bringing up new laws to make the District of Columbia a safer place.
Is there anyone else who has any questions? Yes, go ahead. Someone here in the
I'm
audience.
just wondering, the 17 thefts of automobiles, were there any arrests made regarding those?
So the question was, there were 17 thefts of automobiles. Have there been any arrests?
Yes, as I had mentioned in my presentation, we arrested 2 individuals on September 19th, and we recovered several stolen items, not only just from our neighborhood, but throughout Montgomery County, parts of the 4th District. So to answer your question, yes, two adult males were arrested and charged with some of those theft from autos.
There's a question here in the chat about the tickets. Were those tickets you mentioned to DC residents, or are they commuters?
Well, quite honestly, a lot of those folks were DC residents dropping their kids off at school. And there were some out-of-staters, meaning Maryland or Virginia, but the majority of them were folks dropping their kids off. And I think it's going to improve the problem because I was out there, as I said, 3 times last month, and it gets lighter and lighter when I get out there as the volume of traffic cutting through. And we're going to continue to monitor that.
A question from Commissioner Simkowitz.
Officer McElwee, thank you as always for your professional demeanor and for taking care of our neighborhood. The one thing I have to remind you, as I do frequently, is the camera rebate program. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
And I'm on it, okay? I brought, the city has a private security camera incentive program, and basically the city will pay for you to install outside cameras. What I am going to do, I'm going to include the program in the chat box, the email, the website, and you can just click on it and you can read about it. It's a great program, and basically from my experience, most of the folks that had the cameras installed, the program actually covered just about the whole cost of the program, of the cameras. Also, while we're on that, our my
I'm sorry?
outreach
No.
my outreach person at
You can
2D
come first.
Miss branch wanted me to let everybody know, if you own a Hyundai or a Kia from the years of 2011 to 2021, and it's like a key ignition, it's not one of the push starts. You can come over to the second district, bring your driver's license or your DC registration, and we will provide you free of charge a wheel lock, a steering wheel lock, that you can put on your car. And again, that's a Hyundai or a Kia 2011 to 2021 key operated.
I also just want to personally thank you for all of your help with opening the new high school. Every time we have asked you to come out and help, particularly the first week of school, you were there and it helped to make it a success. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan, and thank you. You also were out there as many days as I was assisting. So your good work doesn't go unrecognized either. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a safe Halloween. We'll see you in November.
All right, great. Thank you. Up next is the Mayor's Office Community Relations person, Matthew Barclay, who we call our Moker. Matthew, hello.
Hi, how are y'all?
Good.
My name is Matthew Barclay. If you don't know me, I am the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services liaison for Ward 3. I also have a partner, Theodore Wren. You can reach out to both of us. I'll put I'll put our contact information in the chat. I do have some announcements. So the Serve DC Spirit of DC Awards is happening this Saturday from 10 to 3 at the Gateway DC at 2700 Martin Luther King Avenue. The Spirit of Service Awards allows us to honor the best of the best in our city, from residents to community-based organizations. So please join Serve DC to honor them. And I'll put a link in the chat. Mayor Bowser visited H Street today to highlight small local business investments that and how they can transform business corridors and main streets of our city. And I'll put a link to a press release about that and how it's impacting the DC comeback. Also, this Saturday, Open Streets is happening at Georgia Avenue. And that'll happen from 9 to 3. DDOT will be giving out 170 bikes, and you can apply at the link that I am going to be dropping in the chat. And if you're in person, you can just email me, and I can either give it to the commissioners or, I can get you this information. Tree planting season, DDOT urban foresters are out in force, help support the efforts to increase canopy and coverage in the city and in Ward 3, and I'll put a link in the chat. Also, with the new fiscal year comes new DC hiring, so please visit together.dc.gov to check out all the opportunities that are available to you to be employed by the District of Columbia. Also, happy LGBTQIA+ History Month. DC plays a significant historic role in our national movement, and we will continue to honor and celebrate the movement and include funding and programs for legal protections in the city. We'll continue to do that. Also, get excited for World Pride 2025. So that's all I have for the night, and I'll drop everything in the chat. Thank you, guys.
I have some questions for you.
Sure.
Open Streets has been scheduled on MacArthur Boulevard twice and then canceled over the past 2 years. Are we on the calendar?
I do not know that answer at the moment.
And then it says there's a awards thing for like local associations and community organizations. How does someone nominate an association for that? Because we have some associations over here that award ceremony.
Oh, that's a fascinating question. I also don't know the answer to that, but I'll get it back to you.
Thank you. Does anyone,
Sorry.
does anyone have any other questions for Mr. Barclay? All right, thank you as always, Matthew. A pleasure.
Yep.
Up next, Ward 3 Council Member's Office is Stephen Palmer with us tonight. There he is.
Hello, how's it going?
Greetings, welcome to ANC3D.
Thank you for having me. I'm, excuse me, Stephen Palmer, Councilmember Fruman's Legislative Director. A few updates from Councilmember Fruman's office. The Constituent Services team asked me to share a couple things. One is that we're going to be having our Workday in the Ward this month on October 25th, all day, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Bread and Chocolate in Chevy Chase on Connecticut Avenue. The council member will be available from 8 to 10 for coffee with the council member. He'll be around spread throughout the rest of the day, looking at visiting various businesses, etc. We'll also have most likely DOEE and DOB, likely some other agencies on site throughout the day to discuss various issues. They also asked me to let you all know, I'm sure if you, like me, are waiting for a DPW super can and have been for a while, we've been told that there is a high nationwide demand and thus DPW's fulfillment of replacement requests for new containers may be delayed. DPW has told us that the next shipment of containers will arrive by September 30th, and at which point assembly and distribution will properly begin. Otherwise, over at the council, we're back in session. Councilmember Fruman has introduced a few bills as of late, which is my department. We introduced a package of bills aimed to address the legacies of housing segregation in Ward 3 and Rock Creek West. A group of bills that are focused on old covenants that in some cases kind of can pop up and throw a wrench in kind of the modern day zoning and planning processes. So I will drop a link to the one pager for those, as well as the way to sign up for our newsletter, which I highly recommend to get weekly, bi-weekly updates and everything going on with us, and to learn more about Workday in the Ward. Happy to answer any questions, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Palmer? I will say I've encountered these covenants that are on most of the deeds, if not all of the deeds in Palisades. How does that work with getting those deeds off? They're obviously illegal, so they're ignored, but they are there. Are they going to proactively go through and try and remove those deeds legally, or are they just going to do that as homes turn over?
So what our bill, and this one is called the Releasing Restrictive Covenants Amendment Act, or excuse me, Releasing Restrictive Covenants Act of 2023. This is following uniform legislation. It's adopted in a dozen or so states already. It basically allows you to affirmatively kind of go as the homeowner to the Recorder of Deeds office and file something releasing the covenant. So it's not something we're kind of proactively doing because, as you said, Commissioner, they are moot because and the covenants you're referring to are the kind of explicitly racial covenants that say, you know, no people of a certain race can live here or own the property or whatever. Based on Supreme Court precedent and federal law, those are no good. If you brought it to court, you would be immediately denied. But they're still otherwise actually potentially active on the deed. So in kind of a weird, bad, dystopian world where the Supreme Court says, never mind, those are fine, and federal housing law changes, they would kind of all reoccur and be good law on the title of your deed. Similar, more symbolically, a lot of people understandably don't want to live in a house that says technically, you can't live here if you're of a certain color or race or ethnicity. And so it empowers the homeowner to just kind of file a very quick declaration, basically making it legally void, even regardless of kind of its legal status. And that would be done under our bill for free. The affirmative way is a bit more unique, and we figure it's best we had a few requests of people who found this on their deeds and wanted to find a way to remove it. So that's how our bill does it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Palmer? All right, thank you so much. I hope you stick around for the next discussion. I think your office might find it enlightening.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Do we have a representative from DDOT? Is Christian Pinheiro with us tonight? Okay, I don't think that he is here. So we are going to move on to our local institutions. I think I saw Corey Peterson with American University. Do you have any updates for us tonight?
I do. Just a really quick update. I promised that we would return when the Army Corps of Engineers, who's got a project over at the old safety building, when their restoration advisory board meeting would be scheduled. And that has been scheduled. It is scheduled for Tuesday, October 10th at 7 p.m. And it's currently set to be in person. It will be at the American University Police Department office. It'll be in their conference room. And I'll put the details in the chat as well as a link to their website. I have asked that they maybe consider putting in a hybrid form. So you can email Dan Noble and I can put his contact information there. So I'll drop a bunch of things. I wanted to at least put that out that they have scheduled that meeting.
For people who are on the Zoom, can we tell them exactly where this site is? If you're traveling down Nebraska, you turn left on Rockwood, right before your administration buildings there. And I don't know, maybe 100 yards in, there's a beautiful pit. That's the site we're talking about, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they're building they're doing the last part of the work that was back from World War I. When the university gave the land to the Army to do some testing and some work on, and so it's the remediation work that's the final steps there, and they're going to build a retaining wall, finish that up, and eventually we'll return to a green space that the community can enjoy. And I have a link to it I can also put in the chat to the project guidelines on that.
That would be great. I'm sure a lot of the neighbors there are my constituents, so I would love to be able to share that with them. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Was there anything else?
Yeah, no, that's all I had at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you so much. GW, Mr. Kevin Days, did you have any updates?
I do. I have very quick 2 or 3 updates that I want to give the community. One is that our 19th president officially began her tenure on July 1st, Dr. Ellen Grantberg. She is hoping to attend a meeting to meet all of you in next year, early next year. So hopefully we'll be able to get that on the agenda. I am going to put a link to her biography if anyone's interested in who Dr. Grantberg is. But I did want to say that we will be officially installing her in as our 19th president on November 2nd and 3rd. And I'm going to put in the chat a link that that lists all the activities that we will be doing to celebrate the first women president of GW. So I wanted to extend that invitation to the commissioners and wanted to extend it to the community. And I will drop all of that information on into the chat along with my contact information. That's all I have for my update.
Thank you very much. I think unless you raise your hand, I think we have all of our local institutions, but I see Linda Greenan from PEPCO with her hand raised, and I would like to give you an opportunity to say a few words. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good evening, commissioners. My name is Linda Greenan. I work at PEPCO, and I'd like to let everyone know and invite everyone to attend an open house on Saturday, November 4th. And I don't have a flyer tonight, but I will. I'll send this out to the commissioners when it's available for you to distribute to your constituents. And the open house will focus primarily on an application that we submitted in April to the Public Service Commission for a rate increase. And so we want to make sure that the community is informed about it and take your questions and talk about some other things that we're doing too, our climate solution plan, our EV things. So anyway, want to make sure that the community is aware of it. It's November 4th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's in our building. We have what's called the Edison Place Gallery, and we're right across the street from Martin Luther King Library, just down the street from the Portrait Gallery and also Capital One Arena. So hopefully folks feel that that's doable and accessible. So again, November 4th, it's a Saturday from 11 to 1 p.m. So thank you. And I will send flyers out to all the commissioners as soon as they're available, hopefully in the next couple of days.
Thank you very much. We have actually been contacted by a group that is opposing these rate hikes. So if you wouldn't mind putting your contact information in the
Sure.
chat, we might invite you back to a meeting so that we can all be informed from both sides about this rate increase.
That sounds great. Sounds perfect. Thank you.
And it sounds
Happy to
like
do that. Go ahead.
sounds like another commissioner has a question for you. Commissioner Simplitz?
Yes, Ms. Green, and as you know, we did a resolution thanking you for your efforts during the storm this summer. You managed to keep everybody informed and bring our power back as soon as you could. So thank you. You personally helped out.
Yeah,
And
we really appreciate that. That was a tough time, and I know everybody, especially in your area, was affected. So our guys did a great job, and so thank you for acknowledging that. So thank you. And you know, I probably won't. I'm not the subject matter expert on the rate filing, so we would have somebody else come, but that would be great. Just let us know.
Absolutely, but I don't necessarily like a one-sided argument. So just to inform you that we might have it on the agenda and we can hear from all sides would be very helpful.
I totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we are now on to commissioner updates. I'm just going to go in order. Commissioner Elkins, 3D01, I'm starting with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've already mentioned the traffic safety hearing today, but one thing I would add for my fellow commissioners is that there were 22 ANC commissioners testifying at this hearing, commissioners from every single ward across the city. I'll just repeat, you would have been impressed by the competence and the contribution of these ANC commissioners. And it made me proud to be an ANC commissioner and to recognize that there were some bright people back in the old days who decided there should be ANC commissions because they made a tremendous contribution to the hearing today. And it's not the only time, but it was a nice demonstration. Turning right then to Wesley Seminary, many of us have spent considerable time with regard to the plan unit development at Wesley Seminary, and it's gone now through 2 zoning commission hearings. The first hearing, those in favor, including ANC3D, were heard. Chairperson Duncan did an excellent job of presenting the views of this commission. And then just recently, there was another hearing in which the opposition was heard. And I want to say to you that I thought that the presentations on both sides of this issue, because there are differences of opinion within the community about this project, were done very professionally, very respectfully, in a very neighborly way, I suppose you'd say, in terms of the way in which these issues were, people focused on the merits of the issue. And I think it spoke well with regard to the zoning commission process. And so I think one can anticipate a decision meeting around the 9th of November by the zoning commission to potentially make a decision in this issue. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to go next. First with the good news, the New Mexico Ton Law protected bike lanes opened up in Ward 3, and there was a nice ride down there. Councilmember Fruman spoke. They are absolutely terrific bike lanes that essentially lead from American University all the way down to almost Glover Park. And our previous commission was the one who approved that, and our transportation committee worked very hard on making those not just bike lanes, but just a master class in pedestrian safety. And it's all designed to slow traffic, make cars aware of stop signs. It just is wonderful. I also wanted to point out, if you recall, a few meetings ago, the streetlight people, I think it was called DIM DC or whatever their thing was. There are streetlights that have been replaced in our neighborhood. And there was some discussion on the community listserv that the lights are very, very bright. Now, these lights can be dimmed remotely. And what you need to do is you need to go out to your street light, and there's a yellow and black sticker that has what your street light is. And then you can go to 311 and they will dim your light for you. It is a miracle, but if you find that the street light outside your house right now is blaring inside your house, go to 311, look up street lights, and if you go out and look at that number, someone should be able to dim it remotely, and we have entered the 21st century. Someone had put in the chat about the Loughborough sidewalks and that were destroyed by the storm. I have it on firsthand knowledge that all of the sidewalks have been repaired on Loughborough, Lowell, Cathedral, and Hawthorne. And most of these stumps have been ground down. There are a couple on Loughborough where the stumps were shaved off and the sidewalk has been repaired. And I do not know what they intend to do with those stumps, but I think that it's a win for our neighborhood that DDOT got this done in the time that they did it, because it was a feat. Update on Eskridge Terrace. If you are new to this meeting, there are 2 homes at 5017 Eskridge and the house next door that were built way too close to the street, some of which is massively encroaching into the public space. And I don't like to get over my skis, but I think we've heard some good news. I spoke to the inspector out on the street in front of the buildings, and it appears that they have worked with the Attorney General's office and the DDOT attorneys, and they are going to indeed ask the builder to build sidewalks in front of these homes, turn the stairs so they are not encroaching where a sidewalk would be. But most importantly, they are changing an entire process on how these things happen. And DDOT may actually mandate, if you go before the Public Space Committee for a new build or a major renovation, they might make you put a sidewalk in front of your street. So we'll see if this all plays out the way that they say. But I am considering this a big win for us. I don't know if anyone else has any comments, but we've worked a really long time. Commissioner Elkins?
Well, I just wanted to congratulate you and Commissioner Horn, who have taken the lead on this issue, and despite some ups and downs, have stuck with it. And I think that you have now given this ANC3D a reputation of not shying away and taking these issues and not taking no for an answer. And I commend you both for your leadership on this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, you know, eventually we found people at DDOT to take this very seriously. And it had, all of our work has paid off. And I firmly believe that this is in the public good. So I'm feeling very good about that. Going through my list here. All right, 5122 Cathedral Avenue. We all know that this has been brought up, and I know the Department of Buildings is here because I can see them on our list. But I wanted to read the statement about where we've been and what happened today, because there are some things that all the commissioners need to know. You may recall that this is an addition build that is ongoing at 5122 Cathedral Avenue. This is the project where ANC3 discovered before construction started that the architect and builder deceived everyone on their plans, that their build was an addition and not a tear down or raise. We showed the Department of Buildings that they had misrepresented on their drawings about the walls they were going to preserve. Over the course of the last 7 or 8 months, the developer has claimed that his build is totally legal and that there's nothing wrong, even though he was asked to revise his building permit back in May of 2023. This design is just not lawful. ANC3D, along with the neighbor, Mr. Rohit Kumar, filed an appeal to the building permit and the amended permit. ANC3D has been trying to directly engage with DOB this entire time. After about 30 emails and several letters, the DOB told ANC3D that because we had filed an appeal, they could no longer engage with us regarding this project. It is to laugh. They weren't engaging with us to begin with, and that's why we appealed, but I digress. Today was our hearing for the appeal. Incredibly, DOB over the last 7 days and today revoked the building permits that we were disputing, and the owner surrendered these same permits today, perhaps yesterday, on the precise day that we were to have our appeal heard by the Board of Zoning Adjustment, the BZA. The BZA consulted with lawyers during our hearing this morning, and since the building permits we were appealing were no more, the BZA couldn't rule on this issue. The good news is the BZA saw this move for what it was, an attempt to escape accountability, and they have scheduled a new hearing 1 month from now for us to debate the new drawings the building claims he will be submitting. I would like to state for the record that the people pursuing this, myself, the neighbors, Rohit, Bill Gallagher, Keith, we have pursued this at great cost of time and attorney's fees to get this build into compliance. The Department of Buildings' new acting director, Brian Hanlon, is here tonight, and I hope he is hearing this. If this project were happening in a neighborhood without the resources this neighborhood has, it would be going forward full steam ahead. And I think we all need to think about the equity issue there and what this means for our city. In fact, if I didn't care so much about this and didn't have too much time on my hands, frankly, this house would be built. Something is broken here, and I have hope and faith that Mr. Hanlon, as acting director, on the Zoom listening to this, is going to help us fix this situation. Because frankly, I don't know if I could do this again. We've all sacrificed too much time to make this right for our neighbors. And I will close with that as I move on to Quentin, Commissioner Cologne, Roosevelt, if you have any updates.
I don't have a lot right now. The New Mexico infrastructure is really amazing for AU students, Horace Mann students, just people in Spring Valley in general. We have a letter later on today about the stormwater project going on in Spring Valley. And so that'll come up when it comes up. I'd like to thank George and Derry, who are not here tonight, for all of their hard work on that, and our working group and the Transportation Committee. But when that comes up, we can talk about it. But other than that, I don't really have much.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis, would like to do an update or just introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry, got here a couple minutes late. You don't have Wi-Fi. I'm just sharing a cell here with Commissioner Duncan. I'm Andrew Davis. I was sworn in to fill a void about 2 weeks ago. And I just wanted to quickly thank Commissioner Elkins, Commissioner Simkowitz, and Commissioner Duncan, and all the reference to help bring me up to speed. I got some pretty big shoes to fill, and lots going on in my district as well. So excited to dive in. I've been reading up on the responsibilities of a commissioner and hoping I can fulfill those as best as possible. As far as issues going on, I've had a few constituents from 3D04 reach out about the streetlights. So I'll be following up with them with the information that Mr. Duncan just shared. And Also, lots of emails from DDOT about a lot of sidewalk repairs going on in 3D4 as well. And you may have noticed those along MacArthur Boulevard in the last couple of days. So happy to see that happen. That's about it.
Thank you. 3D05, Commissioner Horn.
I would talk about the Trammell Crow construction at the Balfour, but since I'm going to be asking for a vote, I think maybe I should wait until we get to it in the official actions part.
100%.
So that's all I have.
Okay, I think Commissioner Nowak, you're up next.
Yes, I just have two quick updates more than anything else. One is if you are a 3D resident and you signed up for and were selected in the lottery for curbside composting, you should have received your composting kit last week, and the collections on that will start. I'm a little unclear actually if it started this week or if it will start next week, because I received an email on Sunday saying it starts next week, so I'm not sure which week that is. But those are out. Congratulations to the city. I think this is going to be a really wonderful thing for the city. And the second item was to echo what was talked about during the police report with a hearty thank you to Commissioner Duncan and the MPD on a very smooth rollout at MacArthur High School. Again, there are always blips and challenges, but we are really seeing smooth movement of people, of cars, and really just a wonderful presence of students in the neighborhood and at the park. And again, there are always a couple of bad apples that make things a little unpleasant, but generally the kids have been really great, and it's nice to see youth back in the neighborhood. That campus was a school for a very long time, and then it got very quiet, so it's great to see people back there.
Thank you. Commissioner Simkowitz, you're up last.
Well, we're here for my crime data that Officer McElwee's not able to provide. We are at 216 homicides in DC this year. Last year, at this time, we were at 157. That's a 38% increase. This year, robberies, 2,656. Last year, we were only at 1,569. That's a 69% increase in robberies. Motor vehicle thefts, 5,434 stolen vehicles this year. Last year, we were only at 2,630. That's 106% change. Yes, motor vehicle thefts have doubled this year. In fact, I did these numbers yesterday, and today they came out with new numbers. In one day, we had 25 car thefts. Carjackings are not relatively rare in DC, as some people may think. We are at 757 carjackings. That's +4 from just yesterday. 75% of those involved guns, and the police have only been able to close 189 of those cases. As of September 6th, we are at 3,328 officers. As you know, we should be over 4,000 officers. That's part of the reason our crime is so bad. We need more officers. My update on the BZA at the lab school, I was saddened that nobody gave this update, but that's because people don't like to give bad news. But I have good news. The BZA approved the lab school's certificate of occupancy for 15 years. Hopefully, this will be the end of ANC3D's war on Hardy Park and the lab school, which has gone on for 4 years. I was the only commissioner to vote against this. I'm the biggest loser on this commission, but when it goes to somebody higher, I'm the biggest winner. Thank you.
On that note, we shall move on.
Wow.
All right, here we are for our discussions. We have 2 discussions tonight. We are delighted to have the Department of Buildings with us. Thank you for your patience. We had a lot of ground to cover before this. If people who are here from the Department of Buildings would raise your hand, I'm going to have our administrator, perhaps, I don't know, should we keep everyone on the screen? Should the commissioners be on the screen too? How many how many people from the Department of Buildings are here? Just I wanna make this
Can
remote.
you hear me? I'm Brian Hanlon. I'm the acting.
Yes, welcome, Acting Director
Hi.
Hanson.
Hi. So we have, we actually have in our team, we've got Eric Cox, who's a he's with our general counsel. We've got 2 account managers. We've got Janelle and we've got Jason. Janelle and Jason are here. And we've got our acting chief building official, Nicole Rogers, who's recently been appointed by the mayor. And we have our acting zoning administrator, Kathleen Beaton, who was also recently appointed by the mayor. So I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to say, well, first of all, I'm delighted to be here. Kathleen has a family obligation and
Okay.
and she is my guru on zoning. We got some really detailed questions, but it may be very helpful if you just let me kind of walk through the process that I'm in the midst of and the stance that we intend to take in terms of just, elevating the agency and the things that
The
I
floor
think
is yours. Yes, the floor is
Okay.
yours. Please,
Well,
please.
let me dive in and I hate not giving Kathleen a chance to talk, but I'm gonna kind of talk through some stuff. Let me just say, first of all, native Washingtonian, grew up on Butterworth Place, 4619 Butterworth Place. Councilmember Fruman would have been my council member. I played up and down MacArthur Boulevard as a kid, as a kid. So very familiar with the neighborhood, and I listened to your story earlier, Commissioner, and I understand your frustrations. I really do. I'm now in my 5th month. I came back to public service out of the private sector because I fell in love with public service the first time I did it, which was running the Department of General Services way back when I actually helped build Horace Mann and a couple of other schools. I came in May. I'm about to finish my 5th month. And I'm proud to this week, or really, I guess last week, I was able to announce my senior leadership team. We have revamped the entire leadership of the organization. Some of those folks were already inside, but I moved them around. And some of them are actually new folks. The folks here tonight were already here, but I was able to realize fairly early on their strengths and really what they brought to the table in terms of engaging in what I want to do with this agency, because I cannot do it alone. My words are going to ring hollow if my senior leadership team isn't with me, and all the way down through the ranks, the customer facing folks, the inspectors and all those folks. There's a lot of transformation that needs to occur here. I do want to emphasize right now that our account manager team I call them our Delta Force. They are amazing professionals, and they are very accessible and very knowledgeable about agency operations. And this is a pretty complex agency with a lot of moving parts and a lot of stuff going on. So again, Jason and Janelle are just 2 of them. And they after this call, you probably have already got their emails. They're kind of our eyes and ears for Ward 3. But look, Commissioner, if I could just talk about some of the things that I'm in the midst of doing, I'll just continue.
That would be great. Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to, blab too much, but one of the things that when I came in, I went through about 30 or 40 days of assessment, and I saw an agency with a lot of really great people doing, in many ways, a lot of great work. However, there are areas where there are disconnects, where there are confusing systems, or there are disconnected parts that create immense frustration for customers. Those things contribute to, I think, communication issues that can compound. So I'd say, without wanting to sound defensive, I think on the whole, most of what we're doing pretty well. Having said that, again, there are areas where there's a lot of fixing that we have to do. And I am leaning hard into that with a stance that's really focused on active listening. When you went through your comments earlier, I am listening to that without any defensiveness at all. I understand your frustration. We could have done a better job in that whole process. I will say that in the last 10 days, Kathleen and I have actually gone back and looked at issues that had been considered, one determination earlier, and we re-examined it. And I'm going to be willing to re-examine things and to make sure that we scour, that we make sure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed. I can't guarantee that everyone's always going to be happy with the outcome, because sometimes the ultimate response is, yeah, this is an allowable structure. I can't really address the specifics right now about 5122, other than to say we've got folks going out there tomorrow to do a determination of whether or not it is a raise or a demolition. And the difference is, a raise is essentially a complete removal. At a certain point, it becomes essentially a complete removal. And as you know, a demolition is a partial removal. So they're going to go out, they're going to field measure it, they're going to make a determination. That's going to affect what eventually can be considered allowable on that site. And I don't know what the outcome is going to be right now. But anyway, I want to convey that, as an agency, literally division by division, we're going through a process of, it's called DOB stat. You may be familiar with city stat or comp stat. Baltimore did it. I think Martin O'Malley brought it to the state of Maryland after he left the Baltimore as mayor. And we're going through division by division to make sure that we are being, kind of fearless about looking at things where there's problems, where we have to fix them, where we have to address them. We can't do it without talking internally, and frankly, we cannot do it without engaging with you, and you being constituents, residents, customers, the industry. Since day one in my tenure here, I've been leaning hard into all of that outreach. I got to admit, there's one of me, and there's an awful lot of everyone else, and our folks are already just jammed with work. But it's a process that we're going to continue with. It's not going to start and stop. It's going to continue. I'm here, in my opinion, I'm here to change this agency, and I'm here to make it better and make it a much more higher functioning, much more responsive group. And I am incredibly confident. Let me say this, our senior leadership team is the most philosophically aligned group of senior leaders that I've ever had the opportunity to work with. And that matters. Because again, I can talk till the cows come home, as you probably noticed, but it doesn't matter what I say if people don't get it, if they don't engage with me, if we don't dialogue about it. Our account managers, they're in the middle. In some ways, they're sort of the Delta Force. They are always engaging with the public. So they're part of all of this dialogue. Our vacant and blighted building inspectors, our construction inspectors, our customer service, all of those folks need to be brought on board. This isn't going to change overnight, but I'm confident that we're going to make this change happen.
Oh, thank you. Your words
I'm going to
are,
pause and let you ask questions.
so I want to ask questions, but if Ms. Beaton needs to go, I would love to hear her speak. This is the first time we've actually met. I know it's virtually, but welcome to 3D. Hopefully we've made our mark on the DOB already.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan. And thank you, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to meet you. I've recognized some of your names and faces. I've worked for DOB, formerly DCRA, for 13 years. I am not a native Washingtonian. I've lived here only 25 years in this neighborhood, actually in Southwest DC, and I'm raising my 2 daughters here. And it's with profound apologies that I apologize and have to leave. They were supposed to be playing soccer right up the street, but they're over at RFK. So I'm the only single parent here who can pick them up tonight, so I need to run and get them. But I'd be happy to come back to you all and talk at length about zoning if you'd like to have me back for a presentation in the future. We've seen your questions, Commissioner Duncan, and perhaps other quick commissioners, we've got written responses we can share with you. As Director Hanlon said, this isn't the first time we'll be talking with you, and I hope that we speak more often and that we hear each other. That's my commitment to you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to open up the floor to the commissioners in a second, but I wanted to ask you all, one of the things that we see in our neighborhood is vast inconsistencies. So we see homeowners trying to make changes to their home, or a homeowner who's building a new home get put through these ringers that we sometimes see the developers not going through. And another question I want to sort of tag on to there, we have not seen any direct engagement on if we bring a specific issue to DOB, us getting a specific answer back. For example, when I call the urban forestry and I say, hey, I think this heritage tree was just cut down. They actually come back and they said, yeah, it was a heritage tree. And they give me this whole dossier on how the heritage tree was dying and it was going to fall on someone's house. And they're like, sorry, this is the determination we made. And then like, that's it. Like they made a determination. They told us this. We're seeing this opaqueness from the Department of Buildings when we go and we ask and say, hey, we see this going wrong. We're not getting any explanations. Like, where do you see the ANCs and DOB's, I don't know, their mandate to respond to us?
Or is that's a question for me?
That's my long-winded question. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'd say on its face, we should be responsive and we should provide clarity. And if we've fallen short of that, then that's something that I need to face and address. And you know, you've got my contact information. You've got our account manager's information. I'd actually like to maybe have a one-on-one chat or more, sort of closer in chat, so we can case study some of this so that I can diagnose it and figure out how to address it. But I'd say the general philosophy should be, if somebody asks a question, they should get an answer, unless there's something that precludes us from providing it for whatever reason, which we should then convey so that it's clear. Yeah, let's sit down and sort of walk through some of this stuff. And it's a fairly simple, I think, you get a question, we should answer it. And I
love that idea of a case study, because we have 3 case studies going on now in our SMD. They all have slightly different problems. And we ask a question that is obviously difficult to answer because perhaps no one has a good answer and we just don't get an answer. So I do like that. So I don't, if you have written answers to our questions, that would be great. Does anyone?
We're going to refine. I mean, I've got some notes in there, and so we can get it to you basically tomorrow. But some of there might be additional text that Kathleen wants to provide, because some of that's pretty granular stuff. And I know
to not get into the nitty-gritty about the 5122 Cathedral, in terms of DOB's protection of public space, because public space is DDOT's purview. One of the reasons why I became an ANC commissioner and I actually ran for city council is that there is massive building of walls and structures, and you wouldn't even believe what is happening in the public space, all without a public space permit, because like you all don't have inspectors that just drive around looking for violations. DDOT doesn't have inspectors that are, on the prowl. Like, someone has to call them in. Well, the average person doesn't know that building a retaining wall 18 inches off the curb is wrong. They just think it's annoying and they don't know if there's anything that they can do about it. And a lot of these, DDOT has told me when they go after the fact. So when a builder has done all this, a new homeowner comes in, someone calls about the public space and this new homeowner is like hit with this, you're gonna be fined $2,500 a day unless you relocate $100,000 worth of hardscape. And then the homeowner goes back to the builder and they were like, it was on my drawings that were approved by DOB. Like, is there a process where you all tell these developers, like, off that property line, you need to go to this other agency to get like approval before you start work? Does this make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes, it does. And I
This
think
is a huge problem in our neighborhood.
I think the sort of the beginning of the answer there is that, you know, DDOT, they obviously have jurisdiction over public space. I've noticed in the last couple of weeks where there are areas for potential disconnect between the DOB review and the DDOT review that we need to be much more proactive about early on in the process, that I think is creating room for some issues here. Actually, let me invite Nicole, because Nicole, who's our chief building official, is dealing with this stuff on a more day-to-day basis. So Nicole, do you want to add anything?
Absolutely. And good evening, everyone. So this is something that we run into. And let me just state first, a part of our permitting process during our review, we actually incorporate DDOT when there's any impact to the public space. What generally will happen is during the plan review process, along with our plan review disciplines, so like structural, mechanical, plumbing, zoning, we also will assign to DDOT for their specific review. A part of their review, depending on how much impact it has on public space, they may require a separate public space permit, which goes through their top system, which is separate from ours. And they will not provide final approval within our process until their permit has been finalized. Sometimes, you know, the homeowner or even developer, they don't know this up front. So it can delay the permitting process. More recently, we've been coordinating with DDOT, working ways to improve that process so that customers know up front any impact to the public space will require a review through their process, whether it's a public space permit, whether it's something that has to go to the public space committee before it's approved, making sure that the customer knows up front. I'll mention that I'm not sure how many of you all are familiar with our permit wizard application, which is specifically for 1 and 2 family dwellings. If you are familiar with that, we have some aspects of that application that include questions that we ask the homeowner or applicant, for instance, for like if someone is digging. With a yes to that question, we're able to provide the customer with information regarding DOE's process that pertains to digging. And we want to implement something similar when it comes to DDOT. So before a customer is even started within our process, they know up front, hey, you're going to have to contact DDOT. This is their process. This may be a point of contact before you initiate our process. Just to make sure that homeowners and applicants know up front, hey, this is a part of the permitting process before you can get an approved permit.
That would be helpful. That would be very helpful. I
see hands up.
Oh, okay, here, Commissioner Elkins, you're up.
Yeah, so Director Hanlon, I am very sympathetic to your need to come in and take a close look and move in a decisive way, but not overnight, et cetera, in this department. And I think you'll find us supportive of that. I would suggest that as you think through this, that you ask the question, what role do you see for ANC commissioners across this city and for ANC commissions? In one way, we are walking the streets in ways that your staff is not.
Yeah, right.
But on the other hand, we're not particularly trained to spot these problems. There's really not been training from your department about for people who are sort of in our level of, I don't know what to say, lack of expertise, but still present and care. And we're not there looking after our personal problems. We're not looking for the neighbor next door. We're looking across the neighborhood. So in some ways, the complaints you get from us or the identifications you get from us are community or neighborhood based and not sort of personal property kind of things, which I'm sure you get a lot of that as well. So there's a certain value to the ANC commissioners, but we're not trained. And to be quite frank, I don't think we get very much attention when we raise issues. And we, of course, have these cases that we'll be glad to talk to you about later, in which, you know, we have a feeling as if we are embarrassing the department by calling out the fact that we think maybe a mistake was made in a permit. I mean, I would hope that the philosophy of the department would change to say that, oh, if someone has pointed out a possible mistake, let's take a look at it, as opposed to close the doors, don't return their call, and hope that they go away.
Well, and first of all, it's great. I'm so glad you posed that. And I'll start with this. Our stance, the stance that I intend for us to take is where there isn't this adversarial relationship, but rather one where we all care about the same outcomes. We may have results and cases here and there that, you know, something gets built that you didn't like, but it's actually allowable. I mean, those things are going to happen, right? But to your point, you are in many ways our best eyes and ears. And so the relationship needs to be, I think, founded on that kind of partnership. We have, since I began, and it needs to continue to flesh out, conducted, I don't know how many training sessions with ANC groups, but there's a lot of them, and we need to, I would just offer that we would love to have a chance to kind of engage, walk through training. I'd have to figure out how do we organize that. Maybe it's a citywide ANC training session, but it's something we need to do. So that I'd just say yes, and we'll work on that.
Just one last point. I had gone through some of your training as if I was going to be an inspector. That's too detailed. And I think, quite frankly, what
we're talking about process
have to happen is you need to think, what are the kinds of problems that a commissioner walking down the street might be able to spot, particularly if he knows how to read plans. And by the way, they're very hard to read for the layman, so that they could actually be your eyes and ears. I think there's a huge army out there of people who could help you do what you want to do, but it's untrained and not very well received by your department.
Yeah, I know. I think that you're right. And I also think, you know, one of the areas where I want to get us smarter is like tracking illegal construction. Okay. So we've got a process right now. It's more rigid than I would like it to be. We have, you know, we don't have unlimited resources, so we have to figure out how do we attack this from the resources that we do have. But I think there's ways that we can figure out, like, for instance, I'll just give a quick example. We had an illegal construction issue and advised the customer to actually get some time-stamped photographs. And that enabled us to be able to have some evidence of what was going on. Those are the little bits and pieces where we just think a little bit harder through it. I think we can create a more effective system. And it doesn't add workload to our construction inspectors who are already, frankly, overbooked. So I think there's ways to get this to work. And I appreciate that question.
Commissioner Simkowitz has his hand raised. Commissioner Simkowitz?
Hi, Director. I've made numerous complaints to DCRA along with Commissioner Elkins on housing code violations in our district. Does your office handle that, or is that through the other half of DCRA that is no longer?
When you say housing code violations, you mean that I think that sounds like our Office of Residential Inspection, where we're looking at we're doing inspections of residences. Yeah, that's with us.
So what Commissioner Elkins and I found was that the inspectors did a great job. They came out, they found violations. I mean, that was not the problem. The problem was after it left DCRA, and I know that you're new to the job, so I don't know. I don't mean to detract on for anything that you've done. But what would happen is the fines would be issued, and then they would go to the Office of Hearings, and then what would happen is they just wouldn't be adjudicated.
Right.
Is that your experience?
Yeah, it's a big problem. And you know, it's interestingly, it's consumed a lot of conversation for me in the last number of weeks. And in fact, we just spent an hour this afternoon as a team talking about this very issue. And I'd say, you know, the ecosystem of residential inspections, which includes illegal construction inspections in many ways, and anything that ends up with a notice of infraction, you've got your feeder pipe over here, and we got people out there doing what they do. And then internally, we've got our Office of General Counsel, which Eric is part of. Keeping up with the demand of these things is frankly challenging because there's so many coming through. And then it goes to OAH, and they're, you know, admittedly overwhelmed because there's just so many violations that are coming at them. So what we're doing internally is looking at how do we change that ecosystem so that we're being more, I mean, frankly, being more strategic about what it is we're looking at, what we're citing. And there's layers of things. There's tiers of what I would call, you know, degrees of importance or urgency. And there's the stuff that is like, okay, it's the stuff that pardon my plain speak, but it's the stuff that either kills you fast or may kill you slow. And the kill you fast stuff is dangerous. It's an emergency. They got to fix it. And then there's other stuff that might be things that you can fix over time, but they're not that urgent. And then there's another category of stuff that doesn't necessarily need to rise to the level of infraction, but can be handled in a different way. We have to explore that whole ecosystem, but I hope I'm getting at the core of your question is that we have to reduce in many ways. We have to hold folks accountable, but also look to reduce the actual pipeline of infractions that's going at OAH, because they need to get resolved. And if we're just shooting them at them, it just piles up. So we're looking at the whole thing. Eric, if you want to chime in with anything, feel free, but go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, Commissioner Elkins and I know of a case where a lady owned 3 houses. She had, I believe, over $90,000 in violations, and then they were just sitting there. So she can't get a permit. She's still renting, and there's nothing that former Director Chopper could do because he submitted it to OAH. And you know, once it went to OAH, she really can't do anything. You know, it's not his fault. It's not your fault. You've done your job. And that's what's so frustrating to Commissioner Elkins and I, who this has been our issue. I have crime, but you know, he has DCRA. And you know, this has been a huge deal for us.
Eric, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head that we're doing our job in that respect. And you know, the courts are as backed up as we are. So there is a delay in this getting docketed. I have an unofficial internal spreadsheet. I'm trying to figure out roughly how long it takes from when we file something with OAH until when it gets docketed and my team of attorneys gets assigned to it. It's lead time's 3 to 4 months.
We're talking about 3 or 4 years, though.
There are a few cases that happens, but I've been with the agency a year after leaving private practice. I have not seen cases that have been sitting for 3 or 4 years. And so I wouldn't be able to do anything but speculate about whether it just slipped through the cracks or there's a strategic reason the court's not bringing it up.
Yeah, please call me tomorrow. I mean, you can, my information is public because we can talk about this.
If I could just jump in, this is Commissioner Elkins again, just real quick. At the hearing on the Office of Administrative Hearings on their budget, I think I was the only one who was there saying they need more resources. And I was thinking about your department because I'm familiar with all these cases. And I guess I wouldn't expect you to be there because that the mayor probably wouldn't appreciate your being there. But I'm hoping that somehow you're communicating to the council that this agency, OAH, is terribly underfunded and it's making your work ineffective. It's really hurting your department. And I think somehow, I don't know, we find the right channel, and I'll be on the outside yelling on the outside, but on the inside, I hope you're really sending this signal that this agency, OAH, really is terribly underfunded. In the meantime, yes, I agree. See if you can cut the number of cases you have to send over there.
Yeah, and I don't mean, and I say cut the number, but not in a way that reduces accountability or escalates risk. I mean, we just have to be a bit more mindful about the supply line, and then hopefully we'll begin to make a dent in it.
We have a question from Commissioner Nowak.
Yeah, thank you for being with us tonight, Director Hanlon. I have a question, and I apologize if you answered this earlier, maybe I just missed it, but if an ANC, whether an individual commissioner or a commission as a whole, has questions or concerns, do you have members of your staff assigned by ANC, by ward, by what is the breakdown of who should be the right person we are dealing with? Or is it all functional and we have to figure out what department to go to? But within
Janelle, do you want to field that?
I'm Janelle Williams. I'm an account manager for wards 1 and 3, and Jason Williamson is on the line as well too. Our information is in the chat, and if you have an issue, you're welcome to reach out to us directly. There are account managers for each ward. There are 2. There's a front and a backup for each ward. We handle escalated issues. We handle direct issues from ANC. So if you have questions, comments, how do I process this? How do I file an illegal construction? How do I file a housing inquiry? This is vacant property. How do I get this identified? We're your first line of defense and are happy to walk you through all of those issues.
If I could just add on to the back of that, Janelle, because I was reminded that, we recently did a thing, commissioners, called DOB Day. And we invited council members from across the city. And it was mostly in person, which is not going to be feasible unless we rent like the Verizon Center for the ANCs. But it was pretty effective. We took a whole day and we just went through everything step by step by step by step, trying to be incredibly transparent, trying to open up the dialogue. We'll do the same thing with you all. We are resource limited, so the degree to which we can consolidate is better, but we also want to make them meaningful, so we can tweak that if we need to. But I would ask if we could maybe put that in the books for some time down the road, pretty soon, to have a DOB day. And it's we'll figure out how to format it. Maybe one of you can help us put together an agenda and what to focus on and that sort of thing. But that would be great.
I speaking for myself only, would love to participate in that. The one thing I would say about, and you kind of alluded to this about doing it with all ANCs, it's quite a large group, 350 people across the city. It's a little unwieldy in terms of being able to sort of engage and ask questions and have some follow-up. So I don't know that I'm necessarily requesting that you do 8 of these days, but if you could break it down a bit as opposed to doing the whole city and all ANCs at once.
Yeah, I mean, 8's a lot, but if we space it out, we can make it work. But as you can imagine, like the last one we did, I had people coming offline for major chunks of a day, and they've all got other stuff to do, so it creates challenges, but we definitely would want to do it.
Thank you.
And
I know
Janelle,
that-
Janelle just pinged me that it would be virtual. That's probably the way to do it. Yeah.
There are a lot of agencies out there that have trainings that are recorded that, like, so we have a cannabis thing coming up. We have training on that we can go and do a thing. Even short little 15-minute videos, this kind of zoning, these are the major things. And I know it would take time to build up that library.
Yeah,
but
you're
the
right.
Commissioners, they watch those. They
It's
watch.
actually a thing that I want to do where we're developing that kind of content much more deeply. You know, and I'll say this, look, I'm a customer too. And a couple of years ago when I was putting together a consulting practice, I couldn't figure out how to apply for a CBE certification. And, you know, I had run a district agency. I'm a relatively intelligent guy and I couldn't navigate it. And I think our website is actually pretty good. I think it's probably one of, if not the best in the city in terms of working to provide clarity. Our dashboard has got some great stuff in it. It's got room for improvement. But when you look at our processes, your brain explodes because it's so complex and it's so hard to figure it out. So one of the things that I'm working on is what I think of as intelligent simplification. How do we take our processes and tell that story in a much easier to grasp way so people know how to navigate the processes and understand them? And that's going to be, but coupled with that is, to your point, Commissioner, is over the course of the next 12, 16, 24 months, beginning to put together a library of content, like you say, where it gets clearer, you know.
It would be very helpful. We have a packed agenda, so if there are no other questions, I really want to thank you for coming. And I, for one, liked everything that I heard tonight. And when we're ready to do some case studies, I've got some that I think would be helpful for overall processes.
Yeah, thank you. And my confirmation hearing is on October 18th.
Ooh, it's coming up.
So it's coming up. I either drop the acting or they get rid of me. You know, it's like, so it's one or the other. But building up to that, and in addition to normal agency management, I'm getting ready for that. So what I would like to do is we could follow back up to have a session on how to put together some case studies and create some dialogue after October 18th would be fantastic.
Okay. Thank you all, everyone, for coming.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and we're really grateful for it, and look forward to talking with you all soon.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That concludes our discussions. And our first item on our official actions are the MacArthur Apartments. If you are here, I know I've seen some of you on the Zoom. We have asked them, there's Lee Templin. Is Christine, I think I saw Rishi here too.
We have, Rishi and Charles Warren and Erwin Andres. That's it there.
So I have asked the MacArthur Apartments, for those of you who are also at home, they have presented a couple of times in the neighborhood. So they're going to give a very short, sort of 4 to 6 minute overview. And then we are going to open it up to questions, comments, where we can ask some things. So take it away. If you need to share your screen, I'm going to ask our administrator, Brad, to allow them to do that. If someone needs to do that, just say who it is.
Yeah, I'll share just an updated rendering. Let's see, I don't have the permission yet, but there we go. Okay.
All right, thank you. Take it away.
Okay. Can everyone see this?
We sure can.
Okay, great. So good evening. My name is Lee Templin, Goulston and Storrs Land Use Council for the applicant. We're here today to update the ANC on the project proposed for 4885 MacArthur Boulevard. There have been no material changes to the project since we last presented, but there have been a few updates to the application and some revisions we've made based on community input. So first, we'd like to give an update on the RPP restriction issue that we discussed last time that we presented. So although DDOT historically only applies the RPP restriction to an entire block, which in our case wasn't possible because we don't control the entire block, we reached out to DDOT to see if there was any way to apply an RPP restriction only to the portion of the block abutting the property. And we're very happy to report that DDOT approved this. And so the V Street side of the property has been marked as ineligible for RPP. We'd also like to give a few quick updates on the project's design. First, as you can see in this rendering, we have removed the trellis structure at the patio in favor of umbrellas based on some feedback we received. And we've also increased the number of short-term bike racks from 2 to 8. So there will be 4 short-term bike racks on the V Street side and 4 on the MacArthur Boulevard side. There have been 2 changes to the relief we're requesting. First, we've removed the special exception relief for the long-term bike parking location requirements. Nothing has changed about the location of the long-term bike parking itself, but the regulations require long-term bike spaces be located no higher than the first above grade level. We had included the relief out of an abundance of caution because although the long-term bike parking is located on the first floor on the V Street side, as you know, there's quite a significant grade change, which so it is on the second floor on the MacArthur side. The zoning administrator verbally confirmed for us that the relief wasn't necessary and that the long-term bike parking could be considered located on the first floor from the V Street side. So we're also adding relief from the requirement that vehicle parking spaces be set back at least 20 feet from a lot line abutting a public street. 2 of the parking spaces are located within this 20-foot setback. These parking spaces are in the same configuration as the existing parking spaces, which are non-conforming. But because we're modifying the structure, we need to request relief from this pre-existing non-conformity. So those are the updates we wanted to provide. Our BZA hearing is scheduled for October 25th, and we have the whole project team here today, so we're happy to answer any questions.
And just so the people at home know, you are also seeking relief for 2 other, the lighting and the rear setback. Could you just go over those real quickly?
Of course, yeah. So we're also requesting relief from the 1 loading requirement that the retail requires. And in place of that, we're proposing an on-street loading space on MacArthur Boulevard. And then secondly, we're requesting relief from the rear yard requirement of 15 feet.
Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and open this up for questions. Commissioner Simkowitz, I see your hand raised. Is that?
Yeah, it is. Ms. Templin, I thank you for receiving my call a few weeks ago. You said that residents are ineligible for RPP. What does ineligible for RPP mean?
Sure. So Erwin, I think, is on if you want to speak to that.
Yes, absolutely. So the intent of removing the RPP eligibility is that if any residents that from our building that front V Street go to DMV to get a residential parking permit, in the database that DMV has, it'll say that they are precluded from getting one, so they won't be able to get an RPP permit.
But what about the?
However, the parking in front of the building is RPP allowed. So as a resident in the neighborhood, you can actually park in those spaces for RPP, but the residents of the building can't get them.
What does that include? Is that every resident of the building, every single resident, no matter what side of the building you're in?
Yeah, so the way that the RPP restriction has been laid out in the database is that it's the southbound side of V Street on the 4900 block. So it's essentially from 48th Street all the way down to MacArthur Boulevard. So that block face on the south is completely ineligible.
So we're clear. If you live in this building, you're not going to be able to get RPP. You cannot apply.
That's correct. Even though there's RPP parking in front of your building, you technically can't get the permit to park there.
Thank you. That was my big concern, as everybody knows from the beginning. So I think you guys did a great job. Ms. Templin, thank you. I can't thank you enough. Your communication with me was perfect.
Thank you. Thanks for your feedback. We appreciated
it. Commissioner Nowak?
Yeah, I want to stay on this RPP issue because I think I'm not understanding it. Can you please tell me what will be the address of your residence if I sign a lease in your building? What will be my address?
Charles, have you arranged that yet?
We haven't filed it yet, but the address of the building would be 4900 B Street, and that's the block that would be restricted.
Okay, so if my driver's license, excuse me, or my vehicle registration has an address of 4900 B Street on it, then that's going to flag in the DMV database that I should not be issued an RPP.
That's correct.
And will the parking spaces on B Street, is that an RPP zone today?
So today, I believe it's short-term parking. So anybody in the neighborhood can park there. You know, we have prepared a curbside management plan. You know, we can sign it any way the ANC wants. You know, if you want it signed as RPP, we can sign it as RPP. The residents in the building would not technically be allowed to park there more than 2 hours. Because as you know, the RPP parking allows you a 2-hour window. So that's the longest that they can park there legally.
Do you have something in writing from DDOT or DMV that you can share with the ANC that says that this arrangement has been confirmed?
Yes,
this is not like that they promised it to you. I just don't know how they would implement it. So I have some skepticism on the sophistication of DMV's system in issuing of RPPs.
Understood. We've got email correspondence from DDOT that confirms that they've pushed this through, and this is actually the second project that we've worked on in the district that has also done this. We've done this for the dance art place project over on 14th Street, where
but DDOT doesn't issue the RPPs. That's my concern. DMV does. When I register my vehicle is when I get the RPP. So DDOT could be the enforcement arm potentially, but I don't think that's true either. I think that's DPW who does enforcement on that.
But DDOT controls the designations, and they're all tied into the ArcGIS database that DMV also pulls their information from. So we can send the ANC the relevant correspondence that we got from DDOT that ensures that this is going to take place.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Davis had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody.
Oh, yes, I can't see.
RPP is one side. The new ones that they have that they added when they moved that no parking sign down are unlabeled. The side against the library, there's a spot and a half. That's kind of free for all. Then it's no parking 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then it's 3 spots of 2 hours.
So this brings up a point because I was at the farmer's market on Sunday explaining this about and the RPP came up. And I want everyone, particularly the commissioners who are going to be voting on this. The neighborhood streets back there are a mishmash of zoned parking and unzoned parking. And every time there is like a half block that becomes zoned, sometimes the other side of the street is not zoned, and then the cars like push. So I heard from some people who were a few blocks away who have no zoned parking, and they were like, we don't want them to have RPP because we want them to be like the rest of us. It's just like a free-for-all. And then some people who are in the zone parking are like, there's not much parking here and we need to preserve parking for our businesses. It just seems like a patchwork of zoned and unzoned, but I think that this is something for us to consider, that it is on the table, and we certainly want to be hearing from people what they think about this, because there's also some people's philosophy of these people are our neighbors. Maybe they should have a car and they should be able to park near where they live. That's a philosophy. But we're adding a lot of residents to this tiny lot. Did you have another question?
All MacArthur on the side where this will be staying metered.
The question was if all of the spaces along MacArthur are going to be metered. And if I'm gonna start from the corner, there's the bus stop where there's never any parking. And then, never any parking. And then the spots right behind that, they're actually unmetered spots now because there's a curb cut. We're actually not supposed to be parking there. That is where the commercial loading is going to be. So it will be unmetered, but you're not allowed to park there until after 4 p.m. Monday through Friday and on holidays and weekends. But that would be free for all parking off commercial loading hours. And if one of the attorneys is online, if I said that wrong about when that commercial loading zone will be active, please correct me. And then everything else along there is supposed to be metered. There is that gap in front of Dodge Chrome where there's like a space where there's no meter, but I don't think anyone is like dying to have a meter there.
So a couple things, Commissioner. So with us redoing the streetscape along MacArthur Boulevard in front of our building, DDOT will likely ask us to remove all the meters and do the multi-space meters. So it cleans up all of the individual meters. And in some cases, when you do that, you can actually pick up a space or two because some of the space between the meters are actually pretty wide. So that's the first thing. Second thing is relative to the commercial loading zone. So that commercial loading zone, the intent is to have a limit in the evening so that it can be turned into a space that's available for the community. And the intent is to have that as a metered parking space. So it won't be free. It'll be consistent with all of the other spaces along MacArthur Boulevard in front of our building. And that strategy is applied in the 14th Street neighborhood where there's a lot of loading activity and parking activity overlapping. So that's the strategy that's planned to be applied here.
Can you tell me, do you know if that's 4 p.m. Monday through Friday where the commercial loading will cut off? Or will that be something DDOT designates?
I believe we're still working that through with DDOT. We can get back with an answer to you. It'll be in that range, typical business hours.
So there's someone here. Did you have a comment about the metered parking? Like, what would you like to see?
I live, and this could be a personal problem, I live right across the street.
Okay, so you're right across the street.
Next to the river.
We would love to hear from you.
If I come home at night, a lot of the people who are in those restaurants are going to, rather than pay for a meter, are going to choose to park in
On the other
RPP.
side.
Totally get it. I would do the same thing. But then I come home and I have to park in a meter to park in my house. So, I mean, I get it. I live in the city, but I also live in a residential part of the city. I didn't move downtown for a reason. So I know where I can park. I know I can park in front of the school after 6:30. I need to move by 7. So there's places to do it. But the concern with adding all this meter parking is that people are still going to choose to park in the RPPs for less than 2 hours, or as people do, park in RPPs and just cross the fingers, they don't get a ticket. So I know this could be a personal problem because I do live across the street.
So we'd like to hear from neighbors who live around here because I have not heard from a neighbor who lives across the street except for one, and they don't have a car. So they didn't care. So yes, I'm glad that you were here and expressed that concern because we need to factor that into our thinking. Is there anyone else who had a question, particularly about the parking? Marcy?
I think that I live right near there and full disclosure, I have a driveway, so I don't need street parking. But I feel like there's a lot of RPP spaces that people are willing to walk a little bit. And I'm not that in support of a two-tiered system where people who move in later can't get an RPP. It just doesn't seem neighborly. But I mean, if it has to be that way, it has to be that way. But I wouldn't be
groceries.
So in case the recording didn't pick that up, a neighbor who lives over on near this parking area is not too keen on the idea of having a two-tiered parking system for immediate neighbors and might frown on the RPP in this area. Does anyone have any comments on design or the retail and what we might want to see there, or questions regarding that? Marcy, again.
So, what's the update on the plans for Black Coffee? Because Black Coffee has really established themselves as a great part of the neighborhood and really important part of the neighborhood. And
this is a great question. I'm gonna throw this to the team that's here to present. The question was, what is happening to Black Coffee? We consider this, you know, the heart and soul of our neighborhood. What's going on with that?
Here, Rishi or
I can take that. So we're actively talking to them. We've expressed to them that we understand what the community wants, and personally, we want them to stay. They want to stay, and we've offered them financial incentives as well to stay. And I definitely think that, you know, some resolution will occur, which will be good for everyone. But you know, we want all the retail to stay. You know, that's our clear goal here.
Is this something that you could commit to? Because we have had very successful restaurants, obviously in the Black Coffee space, but also in the Cafe Vino space. Are you building those spaces out so that it is easy to put a restaurant in there? Because having a restaurant versus, you know, a Pilates studio, we're talking like completely different building systems. Are you keeping the systems there? Are you going to run those systems up to the roof so that it's easy to
Yes. Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
We are doing that. And Charles, if you want to comment as well, but you know, we've really spent a lot of time trying to be thoughtful about the design to limit disruption to the to Black Coffee as well as to Dodge Chrome, and then also maintain Cafe Vino's space, because you know, it's already a built out restaurant, so that way we can rent it out to another restaurant. And I mean, you've introduced prospective tenants and as well, and so we do think it's a really good space. But I can also let Charles weigh in on it.
Yeah, just to pick up on that, we've been working with our MEP engineers and general contractors to try to map out how we're going to run all those systems to the roof. Right now, Cafe Vino space, the old Cafe Vino space, was completely fit out as a restaurant, so there's a lot of infrastructure already there. We're even trying to keep the fit out, you know, really intact as much as we can. So that is certainly the intent of the design moving forward into permitting.
This is Commissioner Bernie Horn. We understood, and so that our constituents understand this, we understood that the plan was for the retail spaces to have to close for about 2 months toward the beginning of the construction in order to reinforce the structure, and then for 2 more months somewhere near the end of the construction in order to connect the systems. Can you speak to that? Tell me whether I'm describing it right so people will know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the intent. You know, there's a certain amount of foundation work that needs to happen at the beginning, and we're going to try to front load that and work with Black Coffee's schedule as much as we can to do that in more invasive work with their schedule. And then, you know, the Cafe Vino space is a little bit more in depth, the amount of demo we need to do there. But that space is empty, and that's part of the reason why we're locating the elevator core and things like that there. And then the intent is to try to map in all those as the vertical construction happens, run the ductwork up to the roof, and the vents up to the roof, and then make that connection in the black coffee space sort of later on in construction. And that's that's the intent for sure.
Are there
The
any
other thing I'd
other-
add is that we believe that the first phase of the structural stuff will be about 1 month, and that would be between the 3 spaces. So potentially black coffee may only be out for approximately 2 weeks.
Okay, so when is your BZA hearing?
So the BZA hearing is on Wednesday, October 25th.
Okay, so this, I want everyone to know that the Palisades Community Association hired a traffic consultant to do a study on parking and traffic. And I am of the feeling that we need to get a little bit more data. And so the ANC is going to put out a survey. We'll probably run it for 5 days, which means I don't want to vote on this tonight, but we want to be mindful that you all need this prior to the BZA meeting.
Right.
So I talked to a bunch of commissioners. I'd like to not vote on this today. And we would hold a special meeting, which would be short. We would reveal our feedback and commissioners could deliberate. We probably won't take a lot of, we'll be asking for public comment. So it might not be a big meeting where everyone, comes and yells at us. But we would like for you all to be there. And it is likely going to be on Monday or Tuesday, the 16th or 17th. And we'll need 4 commissioners to be present to make a quorum. And are there any objections? This isn't really a vote, but I just wanted to. Quentin, you said you were going to be, or Commissioner Roosevelt, you said you were going to be in town.
Yeah, I mean, we can do it on Zoom either way to make it easier for
Yeah,
everyone.
it's definitely going to be on Zoom.
I will be available. So yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. I don't think any of us are ready to vote on this tonight, but we do need to get it to them before the meeting, and so that extra week or so would be really good for all of us.
Okay, so I appreciate your time. I really appreciate the boards that you gave us. They were very popular at the farmers market. I think I talked to well over 100 people who were interested in the build. I already got some feedback. So we will be in touch very soon for that date, but just know that we are mindful of your BZA hearing, and I am certain that we will also be a party to that case.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks. Talk soon.
We are moving on to the Spring Valley Storm Water Project. There is a response to the DDOT Notice of Intent. Motion on the floor is to approve this letter. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All right, we're going to have a discussion. There's going to be time for community input. If those of you who do not know, DDOT has or the city has this commitment to the EPA to clean up our rivers and our tributaries. And the latest project, it has to do with the Broad Branch and Spring Valley stormwater retrofit. And the idea here is to capture all of the rainwater through various means before it hits our tributaries and the Potomac River. Because believe it or not, when it rains really hard, our stormwater runoff mixes with our poop water. So this is a problem. The way that they do this is sometimes they tear up portions of the road and they cover it with a pervious surface and they capture the water underneath the road. And the bigger way they do this is with bioretention curb cutouts, curb extensions, which means they do a curb extension along your curb and they dig down and they fill it with all of this bio, grass and plants and this stuff to capture the stormwater. We didn't think that the DDOT was doing the best outreach. So a wonderful neighbor who cannot be here tonight, his name is George Saboris. he copied the notice of intent, and he and I went to every affected household in Spring Valley and did the 5 houses around that affected neighbor, and we dropped off by hand the notice of intent. And we got some comments. DDOT held a public hearing on the 28th of September, and we need to vote on our comments to the NOI now, even though the comment period doesn't end until October 20th. So we are going to be voting on a letter, and I'm going to summarize here, and then we're going to open this up for comments, where we say to DDOT, essentially, we don't think your outreach was that great, and we're going to send you this letter based on the comments we heard from our constituents now and from the hearing that we went to. But Commissioner Roosevelt and I are going to send our own letters as we get more comments, and we hope that you give them all with great weight. And then, God, it's been a really long day. So if someone wants to jump in with the things that I'm missing, please do. It essentially talks about what are we doing on streets where we have these curb cutouts that sometimes are incredibly long, where there's no sidewalks. It's pushing people into the street, and if someone's barreling down towards you, you're jumping in the ditch to get out of the way. So we have asked about that. And Commissioner Elkins or Commissioner Roosevelt, what am I missing from our letter? We could also pull it up.
We have a lot of like very we have some like specific ideas. I know that we included something about the De La Carlia Parkway and how the implementation they have there could be larger because it's not actually interfering in the public space in any way. The De La Carlia does have a lot of free space, and if there was a place to implement something that they've been wanting to implement the rest of Spring Valley, the De La Carlia would be the perfect place to do it. So that's one of our suggestions.
Yeah, so they have some of the medians on the Del Carlia turning into bioretention fields, but anyone who's been down there after a rain knows that it's sometimes 10 or 12 inches of standing water. We're asking them to extend that and do more, even though it might be outside the line on the map. We also are asking them, we think that they have received a lot of comments that went straight to them instead of to us. We would like for them to share those comments with us. And I plan on reaching out to my constituents who are the most directly affected to make sure. Luckily in Spring Valley, the lots there are very, very large. So oftentimes they moved the bioretention at curb extensions between homes. So it was a little bit less disruptive. We got one moved from a neighbor who had required wheelchair access, that type of thing. But I am going to open the floor to comments.
Well, so for Silent and Spring Valley.
Great.
I'm across from curb extension number 1.
Okay, which street is that one on?
So that one's on Rodman Street.
Okay, this is a curb extension on Rodman.
Street that's completely unlabeled because it's a little short section from Tilden 50 to 52nd. It's it confuses drivers all the time, depending on which GPS they do. So that one works. That one seems to work, even though there's no sidewalks on either side of the street. It's one of the places that's rarely used for parking. It's a fairly wide spot. It's probably useful as a traffic calming measure, to be honest.
Terrific.
That one's probably pretty good. What that is, so I'll just give you a case study. It probably does about half of what you could do in retaining stormwater and keeping it out of the sewer, because there's actually there's two hills that come down at that point. That particular spot would get about half of what comes down 52nd Rodman. It would get nothing that's coming down Tilden. So it helps. It won't. It's probably not enough to produce the effect that's being done, but it's not bad. I do worry about maintenance of it long term.
I'm glad you brought this up because we have in our letter, like all public space, when it's in front of our houses, we're responsible for it. But these bioretention curb extensions, some of them are very, very large. They have complicated plants. We don't know how they grow. We have asked them, what is the long-term maintenance? Is this something that the city would maintain like they do the medians? Or is this gonna be the responsibility of the homeowner? Is the homeowner even allowed to do things with these bioretention fields? So these questions are in our letter.
Yeah, and on the, you know, so I wasn't able to go to the transportation committee meeting, but I did hang on for a couple hours on the Zoom, most of which was the Broad Branch folks.
Yeah, they're having a lot more problems.
But the other comment that I really like in the letter is, look, compile these comments, compile them specific to the specific location recommendation, and then go out. And the other thing I'd say is, well, thanks much for coming around the neighborhood and dropping off flyers, because I actually didn't know who had done that.
It was George Savoris did one half and I did one half, but this would be a big surprise to wake up to if you were not informed that it was coming.
Right.
Listen to the broadband.
Right, although it's not an unusual thing, the guys doing gas lines surprised us one day. So this stuff happens, but this is a permanent thing. This is a permanent above ground thing, unlike the gas lines, like okay, it's fine, it's done. So
yeah, exactly.
So it absolutely will change the nature of the look and feel of the street, particularly if it's not well maintained, like the median in Dale Carly is. You know, sometimes the grass gets cut and that's about it.
Correct. I understand. I've seen a lot of bioretention fields that are very active in Arlington, and they've been in there for 2 or 3 years now, and they look really good, but I don't know if the county is doing something to maintain them, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Commissioner Roosevelt, did you have something to say?
I was just gonna, he made a comment about the public comment stuff. If you attended the Broad Branch meeting, I mean, I don't want to give ourselves a pat on the back, mostly George and Derry, because they did an amazing job, and neither of them are here tonight, but they worked incredibly on this letter and incredibly on the flyers and all of that. But like going and listening to that meeting, like probably 3.5 of the 4 hours I was in there was about the Broad Branch thing, because they found out on the listserv a day before, and they have like 3 times as many implementations as we do. So it was very interesting to listen to how the outreach seemed to have failed in sort of all directions here. And it's really amazing that our transportation committee stepped up to fill that gap that DDOT left.
So the other reason is the whole of the county responding is, I mean, literally Eric Swartz said, yeah, I got your comment. I got so many emails, I can't type in the responding. So some sort of organized way of breaking this up into location by location by location is the only way to.
It's the only way, and you know, we can help them with that if they accept our help.
Yeah.
Commissioner Elkins?
First of all, I want to agree with the comment from Commissioner Colin Roosevelt that I think a number of you stepped out and actually helped our community understand what this is, and I think that makes a big difference. But my main point is that I don't think that DDOT has done a very good job in terms of community outreach. The department is quite large, and some parts of the department is more into community outreach than others, and this particular one doesn't seem to be. And I don't think that they probably will be very receptive to our request for them to give us a spreadsheet of all these comments. And so I think we need to press that. And secondly, I'm not sure they're ready to commit with regard to the maintenance. So I think it's going to take more than this letter. And I don't have a strategy in mind, but my point is this is the first salvo in our comments with regard to the project. I think we're all in favor of the project. We just want it to be done well. And I think we should not assume that this letter is sufficient in itself. It's the beginning of a dialogue with the department. And to be frank, I think we need to have that dialogue higher up in the department than the people who are running this project. If we really want it, get the results we want, particularly with regard to the maintenance. I think maybe the question is, what has the department done so far with regard to some of these bioretention areas that have been installed now for a year or two across the city? What have they done about that? And are they taking responsibility for that? I'm not talking about Arlington, I'm talking about DC. So
Yeah.
I think we
Do
should
not
find
be-
that out and really press them on this, because we're gonna have some very upset neighbors 2 or 3 years from now about weeds in front of their front yard. They spend a lot of time on their yard, and they have this really ugly city area in front of them.
I think that's good. I know that the bioretention fields, there's 4 of them at Palisades Park, and they have been installed for, gosh, 6 or 7 years now. I may go snap some photos, find out what kind of maintenance is involved, and that we will at least be armed with some data when we go and ask them.
So it's scary, so my takeaway from the web conference that they held was that maintenance responsibility, they were depending on DOE to successfully obtain a grant to follow up. So so be careful, because it's one agency and those DOE representative on that call. So you may want to consider engaging DOE.
I don't know if you heard that, but DOE was on the call, and they're hoping to have a grant to maintain the bioretention curb extension. So my faith in the process right now, I don't know, if ANC3D had a logo, it would be a squeaky wheel. So I think that we can do this.
Are there any examples of these being built? Because I know there is stuff in the front of parks. I know we have things on parkways and stuff throughout DC. Are there any examples of these being built in front of like houses throughout the city so far? Do we know how they've been maintained?
So on the website, they have a couple of photos from the city, but a lot of the ones downtown are actually in the tree well. And then they have a thing, so it's different. These neighborhoods are unique. Commissioner Elkins, did you have your hand raised again? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, did you call on me? I didn't hear.
Yeah, I called on you.
Yes. Well, there are some over on the extension of Nebraska, so I don't know what neighborhood that is, but they've been there for a while. And I have to say, when I saw them, I didn't look to see how well they were maintained. But so that is a trip that we might want to take to see how they have been done. Secondly, I would say perhaps we should address this letter not just to DDOT, but also to DOEE, and continue our interaction with regard to the maintenance part of this.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment. All right, with no other comments, I'm going to call the vote. Motion on the floor is to send this letter as amended to include DOEE. All those in favor? Commissioner Nowak, if you want to just shout out your vote. I know that she was traveling, so we are going to count her as absent. So it passes 5-0 to 1. All right, great. Thank you for coming. Next up on the agenda is 2750-2754 Cambridge Road Public Space Application. Commissioner Elkins.
Madam Chairman, I move a letter to show that we have no objection to this project. Can I ask for a second?
A second.
This is a project on Change Bridge Road. It is a long vacant property. Now it's agreement among a number of parties has resulted in the ability to build a couple of single-family houses on this property, and they need to develop an appropriate driveway. In looking at this, and the drawings are on the website, I really don't see any objection to this, and have not heard any from the neighbors, although we should see if there's anyone here who would want to speak to that. For that reason, I would recommend that we say that we have no objection.
Commissioner Stemkowitz, did you have your hand raised? No, okay. Are there any other comments or questions?
Do we see if anyone is on the meeting that wants to speak to this? Just to make sure.
I have a new version of Zoom, so anytime I raise my hand, it automatically triggers the raise hand, which drives me crazy.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. I don't mean to raise my hand.
No, it's okay. No one else has raised their hand. Shall we call the question? All right, motion on the floor is to approve the Chain Bridge Road public space application. All those in favor? Any opposed? 5-0. Six. We have 7 commissioners now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the previous vote
Was 6.
was 6-0-1, and then this is 6-0-1. Wonderful. The last item on our official actions is the resolution to DC to release funds for the Trolley Trestle Bridge. Commissioner Simkowitz, I recommend you make a motion giving us some leeway to do some tweaks if necessary.
Correct.
That's amenable to you.
Thank you, Chairperson Duncan. We have the good fortune of having with us today Commissioner Joe Masawa from Georgetown University. And we have been very good partners over the last few months on the trolley trestle. And I asked that he present this because he presented it to his own ANC. Therefore, I asked this to be introduced and ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Horn.
Hi guys, my name is Masala. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks for having me on your meeting. So Monday night, we passed this resolution unanimously in 2E, which includes Georgetown University, Burleith, Hillendale, and the rest of the neighborhood. So should I read it and then you guys accept that as a motion, or has it already been motioned?
The motion has been made. The motion has been made.
Okay. So I have the people to address to, but we'll just go straight into the reading. Dear X, the person's addressed to, ANC3D awaits the opportunities a new fiscal year brings. On October 1st, $250,000 in funding was unlocked for, quote, planning for future restoration and possible purchase of the trolley trestle across the southern end of Glover Archibald Park, end quote. This Foundry Branch trolley trestle presents a unique opportunity of preservation and restoration of the historic structure. We note that DDOT will be assuming liability for the structure, but believe it prudent that DDOT be a decision maker for the trestle rather than WMATA. As the only trestle of its kind remaining in the district, ANC3D supports the efforts of the DC Preservation League, DCPL, to encourage DDOT to purchase the historic trestle from the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, WMATA, which is actively seeking to raise this trestle. Our asks are, DDOT must appoint a project manager and develop a plan to spend this $250,000. Second, DDOT provide a status report by November 17th, 2023. ANC Commissioner JP Simkowitz will be the main point of contact on the issue.
Terrific. Do any commissioners remember, does anyone have any comments?
Why October 17th?
November 17th is the Friday before Thanksgiving. So we're giving them, I think, sufficiently more than a month for them to give us a point of contact, which is crucial to us moving forward with the allocation and
November 17th.
Okay.
It was
sorry, November 17th.
And Commissioner, you might want to give a rundown of what has been going on campus that you've been leading.
Yeah, so there's been a ton of student activism on campus running through our Georgetown University student government known as GUSA. GUSA Executive and GUSA Senate have worked together to unanimously pass a similar resolution asking for university point of contact. We've had a lot of higher level discussions with the administration on this. And have had, I think, 3 or 4 Hoya articles to date on this topic. And we're going to be holding a rally on Monday where we're hoping to get, 30 or 40 students out there and to go see the trestle. But it's been, a pretty interesting flashpoint. The university has had a ton of government relations officials leave. So there's not really a departmental point of contact, which both presents an obstacle, but also an opportunity, since historically the university's position was one of no comment on the trestle, and then it's had like very clear opposition to the trail. So we're hoping that we can shift the needle on this through student activism, since it's coming from within, and advocacy for accessibility needs. And I'm noting that this resolution is more focused specifically on preservation restoration than accessibility needs, because we think that can come later. And for, political expediency, this is only going to mention the preservation and restoration just preservation aspect.
I, for one, say well done. And the fact that I've been here a long time, and you are absolutely right about the university. So we are delighted that you are leading the charge. Commissioner Elkins, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to add in there, I'm really happy to hear about the involvement of the Georgetown students. It seems to me this is really a safety issue as well. Every time I see students walking along Canal Road and up that hill, I'm thinking, boy, this is quite a trip into the neighborhood. And I think this is actually, if we could ever, this is step one of many steps, but I think I'm really happy to see that students have seen the advantage of having this. And I think it may in fact be the force that brings this forward. And we're really happy to see that.
A missing piece to be sure. I would like to call the question. All right, motion on the floor is to approve this letter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, unanimous, 7-0. Thank you so much, Commissioner. I am certain that we will be talking sometime. Thank you.
Commissioner Duncan, I asked that Mr. Masawa send you the text since we don't have anything on record right now.
Yes, I'm 3D02 at ANC, or you can send it to our 3D at ANC.
Yeah, thanks again, guys, for your support. Just to note, it takes us, at least for ANC2E, we have an executive director who prepares all this, and it usually takes them about a week and a half to send out. So is it okay if I just send you the text as read today?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thanks again for all your guys' engagement on this.
Okay, thank you. All right, I've lost my cursor here. All right, we are on to commission business.
Do you want to do the Trammell Crow as part
of? Yes. We added to the agenda the Trammell Crow, and Bernie has an update because this is getting unreal.
Well, I don't know about that. Those of you who have been involved in this probably remember that Trammell Crow, working on the Balfour site, has had an issue with us for quite some time, and this ANC has already voted twice to hold them to what the BZA ordered them to do. This matter came before the BZA this morning on the Trammell Crow's application for a modification of consequence, which actually means a minor modification that could be done without even a hearing. The short story is that we won in the short term, that this matter does require a hearing, and that hearing is scheduled now for November 29th. The longer story is that last week, DDOT recommended what they called a compromise between us and Trammell Crow, supposedly a compromise between those two sides, which sided about 95 or maybe 99% with Trammell Crow. And we had absolutely no knowledge of it. It wasn't a compromise at all. It was it was inserting themselves on the other side. We found out about this last Friday. I filed an application, an opposition to the DDOT plan on Monday and sent it to the commissioners. This morning, the BZA basically agreed to kind of ignore at this time, to ignore the DDOT proposal. However, during this conversation, the chair of the BZA kind of signaled that he was probably going to end up siding with Trammell Crow against us in November. So we do need to talk about some strategy. But what we need to do today is I'm going to make a motion that the ANC endorse the opposition to the DDOT proposal that I emailed to the commissioners on Monday, so that it would give it great weight.
I second that motion. Does anyone have any questions? We had a brief win today, but as Commissioner, I was listening to the hearing and there was some question of whether the BZA had the authority to make Trammell Crow pay for something that wasn't technically on their property. But then he did say, but there wasn't an MOU with the ANC that we made part of the BZA order. So there will be, that Trammell Crow agreed to. So it'll be a very interesting hearing coming up, but this wasn't something that they were just going to say willy-nilly. And we did get a chance to talk to DDOT and ask why they sent this and didn't tell anyone. And it was disappointing. Commissioner Elkins.
I have a couple of comments. One is I really like serving on this commission because we have commissioners who don't take no for an answer. We constantly have departments who are taking procedural steps which we think are sort of contrary to the public interest, and instead of us throwing up our hands and saying, well, I guess we just lost that one, my fellow commissioners, and it's not me, my fellow commissioners are saying, no, this is wrong. And I want to say that because I've served for 5 years, and that hasn't always been the response of us volunteer ANC commissioners who have 1,000 other things to do. But so I want to commend my fellow commissioners for doing that. Secondly, I really think that maybe some of the answer here is to deal with DDOT. I think what they did is just not responsible. It's not in the public interest. I don't think it's really consistent with their mission. I don't know. I sense it was driven by maybe resource issues or whatever, which are always important, but not necessarily serving the public interest. And it's one thing to say we won't build it today because we have resource issues. It's another thing to say we won't build it 2 years from now or 3 years from now. I thought that their response that said, well, we are going to be building sidewalks in the neighborhood in the next few years is a little vague. And quite frankly, I've suggested to the Transportation Committee that we invite the Deputy Director of DDOT, who is a champion of sidewalks and who has developed a 3-year sidewalk plan, to come to one of our Transportation Committee meetings and maybe ultimately to an ANC meeting to talk about the department's strategy with regard to protecting pedestrians and building sidewalks, because I think, in fact, their approach to sidewalks is different from what we see in this particular presentation to the BZA, and inconsistent. And I would urge that we, my fellow commissioners, to continue to be firm in your dedication to this issue, and together with a number of the neighbors in the PCA, and that we particularly explore whether what we see from DDOT really represents the mission and philosophy of the full department of DDOT. My sense is it does not, and that may, even though BZA may not be favorable to us based on what you just said, maybe the real problem is with DDOT. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with all of that. Without any further comments, I'm calling the question. All those in favor of giving this letter great weight, say aye. Unanimous. Aye. Thank you very much. We need a secretary. because Jeremy has left.
Yeah.
Um,
Does that go to the VO4? Is that how it's?
Kind of comes with the seat.
I'm not saying
Comes
no
with the
to
seat.
it.
You get
I
3D04, you
just-
get the secretary job too.
I feel like I just need to get my sea legs a little bit and kind of understand my bandwidth here and what, how much I have to give, in terms of time. I guess I don't I just read a little bit in the bylaws about what's expected and what's involved and that kind of thing. And
unless someone is, dying to do it, we could, leave it vacant for, another month as I do my lobbying for Commissioner Davis.
I would say, Commissioner Davis, that the chair and I, and also Commissioner Horn, all, started a new term, our first terms on the ANC, and immediately became officers. So if you had time to get your sea legs, you'd be in the minority. So just saying.
That is true. I became the commissioner.
No pressure, but just saying.
Chair, okay. Interesting, yeah.
If I may point out, the experienced commissioners knew better.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of sound coming from the other commissioners there.
Commissioner Elkins, did you have any?
I just so Commissioner Davis knows what is really being asked of him. The draft of the minutes is done by our administrator. And that is a 1 or 2 hour project on his part. It is painful, but he does it for us and we pay him for it. Maybe not enough given the pain, but he does that. So your job as secretary is not to do the first draft, which is unusual. Usually the secretary has to do that. Your job is to go over your notes from the meeting and to make sure that they are accurate and then provide them to the rest of us. And I think you could probably do that in about half an hour a month. So I just want to make sure you understand what is really being expected of you.
And I've been in circumstances years ago, where I was taking, charge of minutes for board meetings and that kind of thing. Long time ago, but I know that it would make it kind of difficult to be fully present and, available, in terms of interacting with the rest of the commission and with other business if you're kind of tied up with minutes. I mean, it makes sense that we have an administrator.
Oh, so
that's why we have our administrator is actually taking the minutes, as well as we have a transcription service. So you're not actually writing any notes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So the transcription service gives us the transcript.
Right.
And then the administrator cleans it up and makes the minutes, and then it's just review.
Okay. Can we postpone until the next meeting? Is that fair enough? And then
I don't see any takers, so that's, yeah, we're doing it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We're postponing 1 month. We want to send nice emails to Commissioner Davis. Oh, an endorsement to the supplemental submission, read the Wesley PUD. We had a marathon zoning commission hearing that started for 5 hours on September 11th and then finished with another 4 hours and 45 minutes on Monday. And there was a lot of testimony going back and forth and being uploaded. And we sent a supplemental submission. It's on the website. Sorry, I didn't send it around. That sort of reiterated, what we had said. And there was this huge discussion about the IZ and the student housing and how the IZ worked. And Chuck, would you sum up our position as we had never?
Yes, I'll be glad to. And it's actually is on the website. Basically, it was a couple of page letter that said, looking at the submissions of the parties, that in fact, the regulations of the agency that handles inclusionary zoning, that is affordable housing, allows for the kind of provision that is being asked for by Wesley. Secondly, that the Office of Planning in talking to this office decided that they listed a whole lot of conditions that that agency will impose on Wesley, and Wesley is perfectly willing to abide by those. And so therefore, the idea that has been proposed by our colleagues across Massachusetts Avenue that the only way to deal with this issue is to do rulemaking, which might take 1 or 2 years, and then Wesley would have to apply under those. So that's another year. Some of us are not sure Wesley would be there in 3 years. And so basically what our letter said is this looks pretty sensible with regard to having an inclusionary zoning on the Wesley campus. That's a good thing to have. We don't have much of it in Ward 3. And Wesley has given this opportunity, and we think that if the zoning commission decides that this dormitory is legal under the zoning commission rules, that we think they should go on and approve it. That this inclusionary zoning issue, which has become sort of a major issue, seems to be pretty straightforward, and that we don't need more rulemaking to allow them to have inclusionary zoning in this dormitory. So that is what the letter said that Chair Duncan wrote. And what we're asking, and there's a copy on the website, and we basically are saying it would be helpful if the full commission were to say this does represent the view of the commission. But obviously we're willing to take some questions here because I've just summarized it.
That was beautiful. It's been a long day, so yes, thank you. We'd like to give that letter great weight to the zoning commission. So motion on the floor is to approve that letter. All those in favor? All right, unanimous. I saw your hand, Marilyn.
Thank you. I couldn't get to the mute.
Apologies for not circulating this budget earlier. I missed the email, but Brad has it and he's going to pull it up because we need to approve our budget for next year. Bradley, yes.
Are we going to approve the testimony in Cathedral?
Oh, you know, we're gonna we'll do this budget and then I'll go back to Cathedral. Okay. Marilyn, could you just briefly just go through the tweet?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So the budget, as you see it, is very much as we discussed it last month. There are a few adjustments based on suggestions from commissioners. Thank you for those who weighed in. The balance forward is as of October 1st, that's the actual bank balance between our checking and savings accounts. We add in the district allotment, and we also have in the other category some allotment money from fiscal year 23, which was withheld pending audit. That audit is now complete and we have cleared it with no objections. I was actually surprised that they didn't transfer the money before September 30th, but I've been assured by the ANC that it is coming. So that would give us the total receipts of $23,000 next year. From that, we have our spending below. These are all topics that we discussed last month. And then if you can scroll down just a little bit, please, to the balance, you'll see that the disbursements do exceed the receipts by $4,000, but I do hearken my fellow commissioners to our $61,000 balance in reserve. So I think that we are quite fine spending a little bit in deficit. The one thing I will say is that these numbers in the expense column are very conservative. I wanted to throw the kitchen sink in there for possibilities to save the commission from having to come back and approve more funds at a later date. The only place that I could see us potentially amending this budget with more funds would be if we decided to do a grant. Going back several years, it looks as though we don't budget for grants. We just award them, and they're voted on by the commission in situ. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions that anyone might have.
All right, just so we follow my my guidelines, I'm gonna make a motion to approve this budget. Is there a second?
Second.
A second, all right, so now we're in discussion. Does anyone have any questions? All those in favor of approving the budget? All right, Marilyn? Aye, okay. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We're moving back. I know I do this every.
Thank you.
I skipped over 5122 Cathedral Avenue. So, there was testimony that we submitted to, the BZA that was very technical, and then I uploaded my oral testimony, which is on the website, and the hearing has not happened. And the building permits have been revoked, but now we have a new hearing a month from now. I'm going to look to, is there any harm in approving this testimony, even though we don't even know, should we even bother? I'm asking for sure outcomes, we shouldn't, okay.
No, my point is, no, there's no problem with approving it.
Oh, there's no problem, okay,
No
then
problem.
we're gonna do it, because countless hours between us. So motion on the floor is to approve this testimony. It basically says what we've been saying all along. No surprises there. And we really dug into the zoning regulations, so. Motion on the floor is to approve the written testimony, to approve the oral testimony, and to approve the slideshow that went with the oral testimony. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? All right, motion, all those in favor? All right, unanimous. Excellent, thank you. Approval of the minutes for July, August, and September. Thank you, Commissioner. And I would be remiss if I didn't say welcome back, Brad. I didn't get a chance to say any kind words. I'm sorry when you first got on, and we are delighted that you are here running this meeting, and we hope that you are healing.
Thank you. I appreciate you all, and I appreciate the kind comments throughout the whole process.
Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? All right, motion on the floor is to approve the minutes for July, August, and September. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are cruising. Is there any additional treasurer's report, Marilyn? I know we gave out some checks this week.
We did, they're actually dated in October, so they would not be subject to the treasurer's report for September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We will be, I will present the QFR for Q4 of fiscal year 23 next month at our November meeting, as is our standard.
Which leads us to our last item. I'm officially noticing next month's meeting, which will be Wednesday, November 1st. I would like to note that we had 4 people in the audience who are now gone. So we can talk amongst ourselves whether we want to have a hybrid meeting or a Zoom meeting. Is there any new business that any commissioner would like to bring up? Commissioner Simkowitz?
No, I was just going to say, I think that it's important for us to have live meetings. I'd be there, but I tested positive for COVID along with my wife. So You know, even though I'm not sick, I didn't think that it would be nice to see you guys in person.
Thank you.
But in general, I think, you know, I think the live meetings are better than virtual, but I think the hybrid option is the best way.
Madam Chairman, I would say, I would agree with that. The reason I am virtual this time is I leave on a vacation and tomorrow morning for 3 weeks, in which I have non-reimbursable travel expenses. And I am darn it if I'm going to catch COVID in order not to go on this trip. So I'll be extra cautious, but I will plan to be there in November.
Excellent.
I'm going to speak on the other side of the issue. I think that hybrid meetings are more challenging for people to hear one another. It was difficult for those of us online to hear the audience members. So I do think that's a consideration. I think we have great engagement online with our constituents. We had, I don't know how many participants Brad might know off the top of his head, but when you signed into Zoom, it says greater than 30 people. And I think in the pre-COVID days, when we were 100% in person, you know, it was rare to get 30 people at a meeting. So I would just highlight that.
I do think
we have contentious issues. We'd have sometimes 70 people.
If it's a contentious issue, yeah, but it just, you know, from month to month. And I think the people that were in person today were there, you know, specifically for their issue. That I'm speaking to the general population.
Something that helped us greatly was when Commissioner Pagela had the microphone when she went out into the crowd. And I think that's something that we have to do if somebody wants to speak from the audience, because I agree, we could not hear everything, but that if we have a microphone and you can only speak from the microphone, that's that helps, you know, everything.
I'm sorry, did we not used to do this in meetings? I feel like we had a meeting, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, where we did have a microphone, or we had a podium. I know Officer Mickelby was there, and he came up to the.
Yes, so when we have speakers, they come to the podium. Yeah.
Well, I didn't set up the microphone because when we got here, there was nobody here.
Oh, okay.
But I do agree with the idea of those of us who are hard of hearing, and I'm one of those.
I couldn't hear it either.
A microphone would be useful. So if we do go forward with these hybrid meetings, and I'm in favor of them, at least to the end of the year, and then I think we should reconsider in January, be my position. But I do think it would be helpful to have a microphone.
All right. Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? I'm using the gavel. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone who remained online. I hope that you enjoyed this and found it informative. We are always available at our email addresses. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair.